Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some or a lot of money on the internet. Load up for discussion today. We have crypto markets trending lower. Bitcoin has gone down to 107K. Actually, a little bit lower. It's worse than what I had initially just said. It has gone down as far as I think it's 103 now. ETH's at around 3.7 and 3.4, and Sol's at 160. We're going to be talking also on the other headlines today, which is Wintermute CEO denies rumors its plans to sue Binance. That's a pretty interesting conversation to have. And Stream Finance, another hack admitting $93 million loss. So we will be talking about all of those in just a bit. We also got the latest on price action in crypto and NFTs and general market thoughts as usual, so stay tuned for that. Today I've got Legendary and Rahim in the co-host seats with me. We're ready to get into it, but just a reminder, friends, before we do, nothing that we say here is financial advice. This market is very, very risky. We do not know anything for sure, so please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, how are you doing?
Jim, I'm excited. New day, new look, new way of streaming the show, new capabilities, new workflow. And we are testing all of that live and seeing how it works out. And it seems that we had a bit of like starting difficulties to get the music playing on Spaces at first. But now, from what I can see in the Telegram, everybody can hear us on X Video, on YouTube, on Spaces. But we are also being told to tell UB to not FUD. We fully sent BTC back to 104K, not 103.
Okay. So I in the mess of setting up the new show and going between different windows and different screens, I was kind of just making up the Bitcoin price at the moment from based on what I saw before. Fortunately, we are sending it higher, it looks like, so that is pretty good. Rahim, how are you doing? You kind of got thrust into this new one today in the new design. I don't know if you can see it anywhere. How are you doing, my man?
GM, yes, I'm just catching up with the new design. I'm catching up with this daylight saving things that people do in the West. So just been like a lot of change. I haven't been on the show in the last 2 weeks because I was traveling. So it feels like a lot has changed in the last 2 weeks, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see you guys and dive deep into what the hell's happening in the market.
Good stuff. Yeah, Rahim was ready to go like 1 hour ago, of course. So what goes on in this region, Rahim? Do you guys just never change your clocks ever? Is that the case? Like literally never ever. It's always the same time.
Yeah, and you shouldn't supposed to. This is like one of those things you can just like convince a bunch of people and you can just do anything. It was just like, yeah, I was waiting like 5 minutes before, a couple of minutes before, and I was like, huh, like, I haven't heard from like B, and I haven't seen like your snapshot, and I was like, that's not normal. So I was like, let me check, and then you're like, oh, today's daylight savings, and I was like, oh shit, like literally only my world, which is like the Web3 world, because it's tied to the Western world, talks about it. Otherwise, no one on my Instagram, no one on my regular circle is talking about it.
Fair enough. It is a little bit ridiculous. I had to Google like 4 different time zones to figure out what time the show would be on Monday, because I've been between a few places as well. So that was pretty annoying. But it's good to have you with us back again after you had a little bit of a break. How was your trip you went stateside, you went to Ape Fest. Do you want to tell us how that was?
Yeah, AFest was, to be honest, super awesome. I think every single year I go, like the culture and the passion that you see in like people in like the ape community is just like something else. Hundreds of people staying at the same hotel, and like everyone was like, they knew I came from like so far. No one would like let me pay for like a meal, for like a lunch and stuff. So that was awesome.
That
But
sounds
yeah,
pretty good.
honestly, seeing so many people like give you like stuff from like their IPs, like there were a bunch of people, they made like poker chips out of like their APFPs and just like give them out and stuff. So like the amount of like stuff like that you see in the BAYC culture is insane. But I will say Vegas is literally like living inside Pump Fun. Like the amount of like casino like machines everywhere. It was like after a couple of days, I was like, oh shit, I need to get out of here. Like Vegas was like literally Pump Fun, but IRL.
Crazy. Did you win anything? Did you play some
Nope.
games there?
Did play some blackjack, obviously lost, but it's just like funny of how people play. Like there's almost everyone, they'll be rushing to the airport and they'll be like, oh, I need to play like some blackjack or some barakat or whatever, because they're like, oh, I need to lose some money before I leave. And it's just like such a funny rite of passage that everyone has in Vegas. I remember when we were playing blackjack, after like we lost 70% of the money on the table, the dealer told us, and he was like, I just feel like this table is rigged because I'm getting all like the higher cards and stuff. So maybe you should try and switch the table.
That's hilarious. That's so good. Okay, well, good to have you back, man. Let's get into it as usual. To get everyone up to speed with what they need to know, we will, of course, start with the price action, and then we'll get into some of the more speculative side of things. But starting with the price action, we've got Bitcoin down 3% to 104. You told me it had gone higher, Legendary, but I'm refreshing and it's still at 104. Maybe I said it was 103 earlier. That's okay. Mine down 3% to 104. ETH is down 5% to 3.5 now. Did go as low as 3.4 something. XRP is down 5% as well to $2.20. BNB is down 7% to 952. Big move down there. I think BNB down 16% on the week. Sol is down 8% to 160. Said it sounded cheap at 170 something yesterday. Even more after 24 hours later. Hyperliquid is down 9% to 37.8, giving up all those gains that it went through just last week. It was up back pushing towards 50, wasn't it? Not long ago. So that's down 20% on the week as well. Super volatile times at the moment. Getting into the meme coin side of things, we've got Doge down 5% back to 16 cents. We've got Pepe down 6%. Trump down 8% to $7.20. Pengu down another 10% today, down 30% on the week. We dove in a little bit into Pengu yesterday. And just looking at the chart, Bonk is down 9% as well. SPX down 18% to 60 cents. Pretty brutal across the board here. Fartcoin's down 18%, down to 24 cents. Rect is down 12% too. So this is pretty brutal stuff, guys. Not going to lie there. Pretty brutal across the board for sure. Getting into the headlines that we'll be discussing today, we've got crypto tanking again, as the S&P is still actually holding 6850. So S&P still, all things considered, pretty strong, where crypto continues to demonstrate this perpetual weakness here. So not good from that perspective. But we'll talk about that in more detail in a bit. We've got Wintermute CEO denying rumors that it plans to sue Binance. I feel like we have to dive into that today. They are rumors. We don't know anything for sure. We're not talking with any certainty on that, but such a huge player in crypto that it is worth just touching in on and making sure we know what the the basic information is. And if there are any actions to take, what we could do, I'll give one example of that later in. The Stream Finance prevents withdrawals after $93 million loss admitted. We spoke about this a little bit yesterday as well. There was a hack yesterday, another loss here. If you've got any of your money still in sketchy protocols or ones that you are not confident in, you just don't want to take that risk, I think, at this point in the market. Some notable price action: Zcash, despite everything else going on, up 20% to $470. ICP up 36% to $5.27. Asta down 7% to 92 cents. Roundup on the NFT side of things, we have again a bit of a bloodbath on the NFT side. We've got Pudgy Penguins down 6% to 5.5 ETH. We've got Bored Apes down actually above Pudgy Penguins, 5.9. Moonbirds 165. That's a pretty big decline, down 30% on the week. Was as high as 3 ETH not very long ago. And it's in a similar vein. Milady's down 10%. Azuki down 7%. Azuki, the main collection, now under 1 ETH as well. So absolute carnage on the NFT side of things as well. Getting into the rest of the roundup to get you up to speed with everything else that you need to know today. We have Tether reporting $10 billion of profit in 2025. Ripple has said its investments this year have totaled $4 billion after the acquisition of custody and wallet company Palisade. US government shutdown is expected to continue until December. I feel like maybe we'll touch on that as we talk general markets. That data is coming from Polymarket. Animoca Brands NASDAQ listing through reverse merger at $1 billion valuation is planned. Bitmine have bought another $300 million of ETH, now holding 2.8% of the supply, but clearly unable to stem the bleeding on ETH as things stand. Crypto Dick Butts announced that its community and Bored Ape whale Adam Weitzman have taken control of the product. I think you're going to see a lot of this at the moment. You're going to see a lot of hacks. You're going to see a lot of changeover of control. When the market goes bad, incentives get completely out of whack, and there's going to be a lot of people moving parts at this moment in time, I think. So we'll see more of things like that. Mega ETH prepares to return $1.3 billion of unallocated funds from its ICO. They tweeted that yesterday. And then finally, SuiDex Momentum Finance to begin airdrop wave 1 today. So that is the roundup. That is the Web3 roundup to get you up to speed with everything that you need to know. Before we get into the main stuff, before we get into the main headlines, Legendary, is there anything catching your attention in particular? What's catching your attention? Then we'll want to hear from Rahim as well.
Definitely Tether reporting their 10 billion in profits over the first 9 months of the year. And unsurprisingly, almost all of that is coming from interest on US treasuries. They now hold $135 billion in government debt. That now makes them the 17th largest holder of US treasuries globally. I think they recently even flipped South Korea. And they have just looked in some more of the numbers which they reported as a part of that. They have excess reserves now, a couple bill there. I think it's 6 or 8 bill was the exact figure. And they have extended their investments. I think we spoke about Tether investing in agriculture, investing in Bitcoin mining. Now they're also investing in AI, more in renewable energy as well as in the comms industry. So it's just fascinating to see whichever the next sector is that Tether is picking to invest some of their profits in.
Yeah, it's the absolute money printer, isn't it? It's just that money printing train, kind of mixing metaphors here a little bit, is just not stopping. Okay, so there's that on that side. Rahim, before we get into the main stuff, we're going to be talking the additional hack, the general market stuff, and Wintermute rumors. But before we get there, anything else catching your attention or any general market thoughts?
Yeah, other than the stuff that I want us to get into during the headlines, I feel like whenever there's like a big pre-sale thing, and I remember seeing this when the XPO pre-sale was happening, I feel like there's like a group of these big whales who are like part of like CT experience that provide loans for NFTs, they literally pull out money, and that's why we've seen such a massive drawdown on like some of these NFTs. I feel like, again, of course, can't predict it and stuff, but I do think we'll see like some sort of small bounce when this 1.3 billion that Mega ETH is supposed to give back from its like pre-sale, that we will see some like price action there. But yeah, like overall, it's just like insane to see. I think a couple of weeks ago when we had like a massive crypto downturn, I remember tweeting out that, funny enough, my NFTs are not as down as my rest of the bags. However, this time around, it's been like that. So yeah, there are like just like a couple of things that are just like very strange. I still can't get over the fact that I feel like we still don't have any idea about the 10th October liquidation that we had on this exchanges on Binance, and we kind of moved on from it. Like, I think it's insane to me that we don't talk about it enough. Like during COVID, when like there was no tourism, import export was like halted, like the world was going to like end, like our liquidation levels are 10x from that. Like, are we kidding? Like, how are we not like overreacting on all these things? But yeah, definitely markets looking super brutal.
So is your point there, Rahim, that the market response was like way optimistic after that moment, given, I'm just trying to understand your perspective. Were you saying that the market response after that was way too optimistic given the nature of the thing that happened, and the fact that we didn't actually know the details? Or
Yeah, I think like not only did the market react very positively, I think everyone just like brushed it over. They were like, yeah, another day in like crypto, but it's not like any other day. Like, I just can't fathom. Maybe I'm like remembering COVID like very freshly because it's a discussion I've been having lately. But like hospitals were going through shares, there was zero tourism, like literally import exports, fruits and vegetables, like everything was like sky high because it was hard for people to do international trade. Like economies were like crashing like never before. And how is it that like on a casual Sunday without any political news, sure, the China tariff news came out, that we were at what, like $20 billion like worth of like liquidations, and like 2 days later we were like, huh, just another dump. All these like gamblers and leverage traders, they were like, oh, this is just like every other day. But you look at like the rest of the market is like doing really well, and I know we'll get into it, but it just like seems like, yeah, I don't know, there's like something making me very uneasy about the market. I don't know what it is.
yeah, I think to be fair to us, and I'd be curious for your thought here, Legendary, as well. We were like very. I did well. To be fair to me, I slept through the dip itself. I probably, if I had seen Bitcoin go literally from, I can't remember what it was, 115 to 102, and I'd been awake, maybe I'd have bought that dip because it's just such a violent dip there and then. But I would not have, once I've woken up, thought, okay, this is a V-shape style situation. Let me just buy immediately, just because that's not my time frame at the moment. And it's kind of similar to my point about the Jeff Hyperliquid battle with CZ at the that had kind of taken place with Asta. Sometimes I feel like when people are fighting or something's going on and you're not quite sure, like it is a realistic option for you to just get out the way. Get out of the way of whatever freight train is looking to run something over. It feels like there's conflict, and it's a reasonable option for you guys to just say, let me get out of the way of this. So I wanted to get out of the way of the Asta hype thing. And I also thought post this significant liquidation, like we can sit on the sidelines and have a look. So curious for your thoughts on Rahim's thoughts and the extension of that before we get into the main headlines today.
Yeah, very, very fair points. We do not know what has happened there. We do not know a lot of things that might go on in the background, like who is struggling for cash. Are some market makers down bad, or is none of that happening? What we do see is that the stock market is essentially at all-time highs. If you check the S&P 500, and it's crypto, which is very choppy. But also in the stock market, the thing is that we see a good amount of capital consolidating in very, very big tech titles like Nvidia, whereas like there's extreme volatility in the smaller ones. So basically like the altcoins of the stock market, if you want to call them like that. And then we also see a fair amount of volatility around all of the earnings. and earnings calls in Q3. And I think it was Funky who made the point on the show that we've been going up only for years and years in the stock market, and we had this expectation for companies to just simply hit their earning goals, which are not even set by them. They're like literally set by analysts, and they still hit them. And when that doesn't happen, then you see volatility. You see Meta going down 10%. We've seen Palantir yesterday going up 10% and down 7%, basically evaporating 60 bill of market cap. So I feel like this like volatility is very significant, and we'll have something to discuss that even more as part of the first headline. And we'll also have something to get more into what might be going on with BTC. But what I also did do is, let me get this up on screen. I did go back to a post that I made in February 2025. Where is it? I was posting a ton today. There we go. I posted this back in February. Like, I've seen ETH fall under 1,000. I've seen ETH fall under 100. I think it's interesting to revisit this prices in February. BTC at 97K, ETH at 2.7K, and Solana at 200. But the timeline feels like a graveyard. And now we have BTC at 104, ETH at 3.5, Sol at 160. So it's actually the only asset that is down from February. And still, like, it doesn't feel good. And I feel like it's partially the same which we're seeing in the stock market as well, which we're also seeing in crypto, that like many people are like trapped in altcoin bags. They're trapped in thinking that the same patterns that applied last cycle will apply today, and they're not in the BTC ETH markets, which moved up quite nicely. And it's also probably the case that we're not really seeing right now an opportunity that we had with Solana at $10 when we had the FTX crash. We had Hyperliquid at the start of the year, but like right now, as of Q4 2025, there's like nothing to do, no trade to ride within core crypto if you want to capture some massive upside that was outside of the like EVM, Solana, and BTC ecosystem. That was Zcash, that was Bitensor, but that I would say is very, very removed from where core is paying attention to. So that might explain some of the like sentiment which we are experiencing on the timeline right now.
An interesting concept to explore, I think, before we get into the main stuff. Led you talking about the sentiment being so incredibly bad, whilst at least for the majors, the prices are not super far away from the highs, at least for Bitcoin, for example. Whilst we're almost at tops, it feels like we're at a bottom, or we're searching for a bottom already. In a way, and I know this is going to sound kind of counterintuitive, and people maybe in the Telegram chat and in general have been onto me for being broadly bearish for a while, which I think is the right thing to do. Is that actually good in the sense that, how much worse can it get? From a price perspective, I think you shared the fear and greed index earlier, Ledge. It's already it's really, really knocking on the door of the extreme fear side. And so I wonder whether we're getting to a point where, if Bitcoin dips beneath 100, for example, I would start considering, I don't know, where do we go? 85 at the worst case, 90. Is this completely implausible for you? Like, what's your reflection on this? I'm curious for Rahim's thoughts as well.
Probably we'll see a very good amount of resistance and people wanting to buy back at 100K. But if we lose that, we might go significantly lower. But this is also what I would like really love to buy and add a bit more. I think, speaking about the fear and greed index, it's at 27 for crypto, and for stocks, looking at the CNN one, it's at 31, which is still in the fear territory and very close to 25, where you go into extreme fear. I find it honestly even weirder for the S&P 500, because this thing is literally at all-time high. Like, yes, for BTC, you can make the point that is 20K away from its all-time high, but the S&P 500 essentially is at all-time high, and it's still like driven by fear. And I wonder how much of that then is to do with the government shutdown, which, you had it as part of the Web3 Roundup. Looks like it's going to go into December, and not having data on that, having a bit of the hawkish perspective by Jay Powell that the rate cut for December is not priced in. It's not priced in. It's not a given. Still could change. So I wonder why the stock market is so fearful right now. This is something that doesn't make sense to me. It makes me a bit cautious, makes me a bit worried, but I don't have a good explainer for that. Also curious to hear, your guys' thoughts on that, but then we also have Funky with his hand up.
Let's go to Rahim first, and then we'll hear from Funky. Rahim.
Yeah, I think like my concerns are very much aligned on the same thing. I feel like a lot of this is essentially bodies rising up with like that crash as I was talking about that happened, which is like now we are seeing it on like the crypto side of things. Like you said, yeah, like if we believe that crypto is crashing like this when the S&P 500 and everything is on an uptrend, what happens if TradFi starts going down? Because they've been like up only for like a while and stuff. Are we going to like
that's a
absolutely
reasonable
like
question.
crash? So I know, like I feel like I was looking at the liquidity index, and I think there's like a lot of liquidity around like 89, 88K. So clearly there's like a bunch of people banking on this idea that we'll get like a drop down to that. But I think that's what like scares me a lot. You look at like the traditional finance market is doing like really well. Even you look at like, like Tom Lee buying ETH yesterday. I believe Michael Saylor also bought like a stack of like Bitcoin, I think day before yesterday, and he's obviously not buying as much lately. But suddenly, like, like the market's like absolutely brutal. So I still feel like there's like in the next couple of weeks we'll see like a lot of bodies rise up. We're gonna find like some of these like random strategy companies completely get liquidated. But I feel like all of this on the crypto side is perhaps this, like there's no way we just speed run with whatever happened on the 10th of October.
Okay. Good thoughts. We definitely want to bring Funky in here because I know he has been sharing some ideas around the government shutdown and how that fits in to all of this, which is quite persuasive to me, actually. So, Funky, welcome to the stage, my man. Curious for your thoughts here.
Jam guys, yeah, I mean, a lot of this is what we talked about when I was co-hosting last Thursday with Legendary. I really think the government shutdown is the primary driver. You have to remember, this is now the second longest government shutdown ever. And it's not even finished. So I think that partly explains the fear that is gripping the TradFi markets. When you look at all of the money that is being pent up in the system and not being injected, you got to remember the crypto market is the most sensitive to liquidity, right? And we are a tiny, tiny, tiny drop in the TradFi ocean, 3.46 trillion for the entire thing, right? We have single companies that are worth more than that. And so when you look at TradFi, I think that it's easier for them to stay afloat, if you will, because that is a much, much, much bigger ocean of liquidity compared to ours. So there was a great long form post that I read. I don't even know who it was from, but I reposted it this morning, like right when I woke up and got on X, so you could see it on my handle. And it's, I think, goes step by step for why no one should be bearish. If anything, and he shows the chart. When this has happened in the past, basically we go down to the 50-week SMA for Bitcoin. This happened in September, October of 24. We touched that line, massive rally. April of 25, we touched that line at 76, massive rally. I think we're just going to head down there. I would not be surprised to see us wick at 98 or 100. I think as long as we continue to have, especially weekly closes above 100K, I'm not worried about anything. And I think we're just going to, once the money spigot gets turned back on, this is all just up and to the right all over again.
Just explain. So thanks for your thoughts, Funky. Just explain to us, maybe even if in a simple way as possible. You said like the money's getting pent up in there, like it gets stuck in the government when it gets shut down in this way. What's the easy way for people to understand like why that liquidity is getting stuck at the moment?
So there's a great chart that was shared inside the Modern Market chat by Niski. Basically, when the SOFR, which is sort of this collateral liquidity shortage, it's the repo. Basically, the Treasury, when it's shut down, they're not issuing funds to banks. And that number just continues to get pent up. And that money is just sitting on the sideline, right? And we're talking to the tune of tens of billions of dollars already. And so it puts the banking system in crisis. If you read that long form post, he kind of goes into that and several other metrics for why money is just like kind of being put on the shelf and not being put into the system. So once the government reopens, it's going to get back to the business of lending as usual. So all that liquidity is going to come flooding into the market. And I think it will have a pretty systemic impact in a positive way.
Okay, interesting. I am very persuaded by an argument of that nature. So, Ledge, I don't know if as part of your analysis now, as you go into the prices and why things are crashing while everything else is holding up, while the S&P is holding up, I think the poly market for the government shutdown turnaround, or maybe we can come back to you, Funky, in a bit to see if you have the data there. Or I actually think Legendary is going to find it in the meantime. But it'll be good to hear on that, because I think keeping an eye on that then could be quite instructive here. But anyway, I'm going to pass over to Legendary now, and you're going to take us through the general sentiment, where you think prices are going, how things are playing out for you, and your perspective on it.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of things I want to look at, and also offer a more bullish perspective on things, given that we've been quite bearish on over the last couple of weeks. And I found an interesting article which I want to get into as well. But before I do that, first thing coming from the Kobesi letter is related to the government shutdown. And it's specifically related to the amount of debt that the US has added during the government shutdown, which is 600 bill during the first 30 days. That's an average of 19 bill per day. And since the shutdown began on October 1st, over 3.2 million airline passengers. It's also an interesting data point that they referenced have experienced cancellation or delays. If the shutdown persists through Thanksgiving, this number could exceed 10 mil. And they're also saying, we're going to get into poly market, that they are on track to have a 61-day shutdown, 7.5 times longer than the average one. So we have labor market crumbling, Fed cutting rates amid a complete data blackout, saying that the system is broken. Now, the pushback to that would be obviously coming from the last FOMC meeting, where Jay Powell was pretty confident to say, look, we might not have all of the data, we might not have all of the reporting, but we are pretty confident that if something is changing in a major and significant way, that we would be able to spot that. Staying on the government shutdown and the poly market, which you guys had mentioned, currently on the market, when will the government shutdown end, which has 6 mil in volume. November 30th is the predicted outcome. Basically, very few market participants think that it's going to end before that. 43% think that it's going to take at least until November 16th, if not longer than that. And that is already significant enough in volume to monitor that market. However, the other two things that I want to touch on, one of which we said already, S&P 500 going into equities is doing quite well. But the other data point, or the other hypothesis, the more bullish thing that I wanted to get into, is this Substack article that someone sent to me. Is called Bitcoin's Silent IPO and Why This Consolidation Isn't What You Think. And is making exactly this point which we're saying on the show. So like S&P is flirting with all-time highs. Gold did break through 4.3K before it went down to 4K again. And Bitcoin is doing nothing really. And why is that the case? The author is making the point that the psychology of the original holder matters. So someone who minted BTC in 2010 or bought it $100 or bought it 1K, and that they held through Mt. Gox, through China bans, through the 2018 bear market, through COVID, through regulatory uncertainty, and all of these things for, in some cases, even a decade. And back then, you didn't even have the liquidity to exit. You couldn't sell 100 mil of BTC in 2015. You couldn't sell a bill of BTC in 2019. The market couldn't absorb that. But now the OG whales can actually get out, can sell that. And the author is also making the point that this is not, rationalizing a bear market just before the end of the 4-year cycle, but he's comparing that price action, which we are seeing, to a traditional IPO. And he's looking at stuff like Amazon, which went public in 97 at $80 per share, took 3 years to hit $100. And basically now that we have this like sufficient liquidity, that we have enough liquidity, especially in ETFs, although the last week has not been a good one. We've seen outflows in the couple hundred millions, but still there is enough liquidity due to the maturity of the industry, due to the general still very, very strong ETFs overall. Like we're still talking about 61 billion overall in inflows, that now the stage is set for a complete different style of distribution, where you can have large people exiting their original positions, the original holders, the original whales, and you can also now have large institutions buying in with very significant sizes, where that is in one clip, or DCAing in with millions, with billions over the over ETFs and over a longer period of time. And that is exactly what happens after IPO. So basically, he says like the original holders of BTC are like the initial shareholders of a company pre-IPO. It's tiny, it's founders, it's early employees, it's some VCs. And after the IPO and lockup expirations, then like ownership is fragmenting, and then you have like millions of shareholders coming in instead of hundreds, index funds, retail investors, institutions. And basically he's saying that BTC is at its like IPO stage, where now for the first time the market, the regulatory certainty, the distribution mechanisms where ETFs are set for people to come in the millions over the next couple of years, just to offer a more bullish perspective as a backdrop against our sometimes realism, sometimes a bit more bearishness over the last couple of weeks.
I actually like the take. I like it a lot. The one thing I would layer on top of this as well is the political timetable, where I've said this a bunch. I just think Trump being in charge, Trump was elected 1 year ago. Like, this might feel crazy to people, but it's been 1 year since the election. The inauguration was at the top of this year. Like, this is no time. It feels like a really, really long time. And there's obviously a period of time post Trump election inauguration for people to be excited and to like have some of the positive energy. It can't do that for 4 years in a row. So I know you've got the 1 4-year cycle that people are thinking about and thinking, well, okay, we need to sell here because the kind of economic cycle, it's the right time to take some profits. You also got this 4-year period that Trump is going to be in charge. And just thinking from a strategic perspective from them, as they try to design when they support the market, I feel like they've had that period of time where they had the mania, in which they can say, look, the markets are happy with us because we are the reason why the markets moved up. Then we had this period of time where things had to cool off, and they created some turmoil, actually self-created turmoil, arguably, with the tariffs and things of that nature. And we can stay here for a bit before we can move up again. I think at some point in time in the next over the course of the Trump administration, we will move significantly higher again. I do think that. Do I think it has to be right now because we just did October the 10th and everyone just got hammered and smashed in the huge liquidation event? No, I don't think it's 2 weeks later. I just don't think it's going to happen for you 2 weeks later. You're going to have to be more patient than that. But I do think over the course of the Trump administration, these things move higher when we are ready. And I think people are not ready because they're just being impatient. That's what I would lay on top of that. Rahim, would be very curious for your thoughts. And then Ledge, if you have anything extra, would be good to hear back from you as well. Rahim?
Yeah, I think I really like the article as well. I think it's very insightful, and I think it peaks to this idea that if we keep circling back to the 10th October thing, then maybe in like a previous cycle, if we had the exact event that unfolded on the 10th of October, like Bitcoin would have been like down way more significantly than it actually did, because it did move, but it seemed like some of the alts got like absolutely like hammered, which just speaks to not having like the similar type of like liquidity that probably like some of this Bitcoin has, because of all the institutional layer, the ETFs and everything. So I really like the take. I think then it just comes down to that, okay, at what stages, what how much do we consider of Bitcoin price movement as not volatile anymore like it used to be before? Like if you're saying that it reached 124, let's take the FTX crash for example, right? During that time we went from what, like 64 65 at like its peak to 20, so it was like a 3x down. Are we saying that in like brutal, like if we have like a massive catastrophic event, we see like Bitcoin hitting like 90K? Is that the most bearish case? Is 75K? And at that point, are we saying that, okay, the cascade of which it can fall by has reduced from 3x to maybe like 2x now or 1.5x? Would we count that as it being a lot more stable? I would say yes, because it does take time for liquidity to be spread. But I really like the stake, especially if you have like Bitcoin OG sitting from like 2009, 2010. So yeah, I would love to read this in like detail and stuff. So I'll ask you to send it to me.
Okay. Ledge, circling back to you. Final thoughts before we move on?
Just the finishing two sentences in the article, which I like a lot, which are: Bitcoin's volatility was the price of its birth. Its stability will be the proof of its adulthood.
Don't mind that at all. That should maybe give some other people some stability as everyone is crashing out at the underperformance of crypto at the moment. I do think we could. Would probably bet we do go lower from here, actually, because I think it's still too soon from what happened. But over the course of the 4-year administration, I think we go higher again at some point. We just need to be patient. So that is that. We got a couple more headlines to get into today. The first one, which we're going to talk about, is this Wintermute news. Obviously, Wintermute's a very big market maker in the space, the biggest of all. And the headline is that Wintermute's CEO says that the market maker is not suing Binance and never had plans to. This is in relation to the losses that they incurred during the largest crypto liquidation event on October the 10th, which is what we've just been touching on. And it's just some rumors that started going around yesterday that maybe there was something going on here between, realistically, the biggest exchange in crypto and the biggest market maker in crypto. That we do know that Binance paid out a lot of money to various parties. I think the number started stretching into the hundreds of millions, but we didn't get really any further clarification on who the money went to, in what proportion. I don't think anyone knows the total amount. I don't think anyone knows exactly why. I guess people incurred losses, but that's a very general reason, right? If you're trying to really understand the health and nature of any kind of economic operation, you'd want some more detail there. So it sounds like this has just been denied. And I guess one way that you could take that in this industry is to say, okay, great, the biggest person is saying that, talking of Wintermute here, that everything's fine, it should be fine. Personally, and this does not reflect any version of reality. I know nothing more than what I've shared here. I just think being in this industry for as long as we've been in, and based on the variety of things which have happened more recently, I would be inclined to withdraw capital from wherever you think you might have exposure. A, you had the balancer hack yesterday. B, you've had what's this second one? Stream finance with a loss of funds, which Rahim's going to touch on a little bit later. And then C, you've got this potential dispute, which, okay, fine, they say publicly it's not a dispute. To be honest, I don't think this is the most trustworthy industry across the board. And so, I'm of the opinion you got to look after your own funds yourself. And if you can go back in after, once everything has been completely cleared, then great. I think we're in a vulnerable spot. For example, on Wildcat Finance, Legendary, I remember maybe you were in this with me. On Wildcat, you're actually able to lend to Wintermute at the moment, uncollateralized. They're able to tap into everyone's liquidity, and you can lend to them. So yesterday I pulled my loan and I managed to get the funds out today. So it seems to be functioning completely fine. I'm not suggesting that there's any issues with it. It seemed to work. You pulled the funds, you have to wait a little bit. When I woke up in the morning, you're able to take the funds that you had given. I think there is a bit of a time lock that it gives them time to be able to get you your funds, basically. You have to check the details. But I would actually think beyond that, if you haven't already, just to just read the signs, and if you've got your money on any sketchier or protocols which you are less confident on, maybe it's time to take custody of those funds again. It might make sense actually, because we're talking about this type of thing, to go straight into Rahim, your news, and then we discuss it together, because in a way the next headline is very much the same conversation about loss of funds, which is pretty horrible for the industry. Do you want to go into that, Rahim?
Yeah, let's do it. So Stream Finance, a DeFi protocol that came out in 2024, just like a quick TLDR. They're like your basic yield strategies, like a concept. They provide they have like a liquidity layer for perp contracts. They are secured by EigenLayer, and they're integrated with like Pendo, CeeLo, and a bunch of like other protocols. They basically came out yesterday saying that they've paused and halted withdrawals and deposits on both the sides, because they're managed by an external fund that essentially said that there's like a loss of like $93 million in their entire ecosystem, which obviously led to their stablecoin USD to also depeg all the way down to 0.3 for like a couple of minutes. So absolutely like brutal to see that. They haven't released like any more like further details. So like at this moment, I hope a lot of people listening have already withdrawn or are not exposed to that. Unfortunately, clearly some people are, but like as soon as like you have some clarity, I would suggest like to pull out like liquidity as soon as you can. They have like some big law firms who are investigating into that, but as of now, like we have like no further clarification. I feel like this is like a classic example of like these are the bodies like rising up after the 10th October crash thing, and I reckon that we are going to start seeing more and more. And I think I would subscribe to the idea of what you were saying, B, which is to like I I think for me at least, I'm at this point in the cycle where even if I feel like certain protocols are not as risky, that I just don't want to be exposed to this.
Yeah, sometimes it's not a
Industry would,
judgment, right? It's not a judgment even on the protocol. You just want custody
yeah.
of your funds again.
It just like it help you like sleep better, like help you like make you feel better about your decisions. Just quickly coming up to the Wintermute and the Binance discussion, a couple of thoughts I had. Like, firstly, I think it was funny that every single person, there were so many people on the timeline yesterday, they were like, I have an undisclosed source who's saying that this is this and this happening. Apparently everyone on the timeline has an undisclosed this thing source claiming the exact same thing, which could also just be like a product of what like everyone's like super bearish. Everyone wants to find a reason that they can essentially reason out of why this is happening. And this goes back to the PR of like Wintermute as well. Like I think we can all agree like 90% of the people in our space like hate Wintermute. They lost a
Yeah,
lot of
that's true.
reputation towards the meme coin era. So my heart goes out to anyone who works at Wintermute, because I don't think anyone in the industry respects them, like which is kind of like sad. But I just feel like, it just made sense to like of course we don't even know if this news is true, but I just felt like a lot of like random accounts that would never have like
Yeah.
valuable takes, and I don't mean this in like in a disrespectful way, they started like hopping on this trend. So I was like, okay, you know what, I don't know if I believe like everyone having an undisclosed source if you just
Yeah.
like joined CT like 6 months ago.
Sure. Yeah, I think it is a bit of a meme to blame Wintermute for everything, isn't it? And I don't know if that is the right way to view it. So, okay, appreciate the thoughts there. Ledge, coming to you. We've got 5 minutes left. We kind of wrapped those two headlines all in one go. So feel free to just take in whatever direction you want. Your thoughts on the hacks and the Wintermute stuff and how we might be able to protect ourselves.
Yes, quite a lot happening at the same time, because we also had the balancer hack yesterday, right? That was for more than 100 mil as well. And
Yep.
it's just I just let's put it like that. I just agree with you, B, in the sense of that right now I don't feel extremely experimental with my money in the short term.
Correct.
Then I'd
Correct.
rather pull out of the more exotic stuff. I think especially with Stream Finance, they did create a loop of bad debt by lending, borrowing against other protocols as well. I think that Elixir came out to say that they're essentially the only ones who have like one-to-one redemption rights for the stables, but other lenders to Stream Finance don't have that. So we just don't know the extent of the bad collateral, the bad debt. Now to the Wintermute situation, no clue what is going or if anything is going on there. And as Rahim said, like people were like speculating on the timeline and having undisclosed sources. I was trolling as well. I said like, oh, if half of the things I heard are true, that was just a troll post that I had to make in the moment yesterday. I don't have any undisclosed sources, but people did reach out to DM to ask me what I know. So that was hilarious to see. But it's going back to the more serious stuff. It's just for me a period where I'm like happy to not be experimental with my money with DeFi protocols. Not to a large extent. I mean, I still have like my Solstice, my Almanac positions, which obviously could go wrong in a way as well. But I don't have capital in there to an extent that I would find it very, very painful if that got lost or drained. And then the question really becomes, look at the yield, look at what you can capture on Aave, look at what you can capture in TradFi, and just try to assess if that excess yield is worth it or not. And to me, the answer often is like only worth it if I have a case that I can make that I'm also farming an airdrop at the same time. So I have like an above average, above market yield plus an airdrop opportunity, because otherwise, if you farm 10, 12 protocols, one gets hacked, you have an even distribution. Or like you farm 10 protocols, one gets hacked, or even 20 and one gets hacked, then you lose 5% of whatever capital you put in, but you farmed like 3% above market, you still have made less money in a year than if you had that all in more conservative thing. So I do like experimental stuff more when I see an opportunity to double or triple dip. But for now, I am very happy to like take money out of some of the more exotic places and watch things playing out before I decide how I reallocate again.
Indeed. Look, I think that's wise. I think we've been preaching that actually for quite a lot of time now on the show, at least. Well, when we say a lot of time, at least the last few weeks, maybe. Just to de-risk. I like the tweet, Ledger. I don't know if you've got it, that you just tweeted this morning. I was going to reply to it later. It's not quite the same as taking your money out of protocols, but the thing that I was saying over the summer, right, was that I was a net seller, and that every time I see something stupid, just let's sell a bit. Let's sell a bit all the time. And you just had this. I don't know why you were thinking about that. Maybe you can tell us why in a second. But you had that tweet. You said, "I think VCheck has one of the most level-headed approaches to trading. Whenever something incredibly stupid happens, just take some profits." And we had on the top of my head, we had all of the DATs, and not just the main DATs, right? You had a Doge DAT getting created. I remember specifically on the show saying, as soon as I saw that, I'm going to sell something. It doesn't even matter what it is. Like, something has to be sold when you see these kind of DATs getting created. And there were just multiple things over the summer where there was like just kind of running into this kind of mania phase. So I don't know if you have a final reflection there, Ledge, before we close out.
Yeah, the thing that I had in mind specifically for that was the 20 mil paid for 8 episodes of Up Only. Like,
okay.
the deal is fine. That's excellent. It's something amazing that Kobe has built. And I get that there's part of distribution, part of marketing that is the Up Only deal. But just in isolation, that amount of money for 8 podcasts, live show episodes, is putting that in perspective to Hollywood entertainment costs is just ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, that's kind of looking back, maybe patting ourselves on the back a little bit, but still, I know people want us to just pivot immediately. I think people, when you pat yourself on the back for being responsible, which is maybe a little bit boring, people want you to say, well, okay, well now it's time to buy the dip. Now it's time to send it up. And I guess yeah, sure, we are closer to that point than before, in my opinion, but I don't know. We're preaching patience a little bit here, I think. So sometimes you've just got to be patient, guys. Sometimes you just got to take it as it comes and be here for the ride. So that's where we are. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you, as always, to Legendary for co-hosting and Rahim for co-hosting as well. Thank you in the audience for joining us. Just a reminder, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time, live on X and X video and YouTube. And you can catch us on Apple and Spotify podcasts as well. What you can do, or what I hope you enjoyed, is the new version of the show. We have the price action going up all over the top, the tickers. We have new layouts with the hosts and the screen shares and all of our partners at the bottom, with headlines changing all the way through the show. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any thoughts, I saw some feedback already in the comments, in some quote tweets, and in the Telegram. If you have any thoughts about how we are doing with it, please do let us know. As always, we want to keep making the show better over time, which is what we've done to this point, and we will hope to continue to do. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, have a wonderful day. Take care. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow.